Hi, my name is Jason Park.
And I'm Adrian Galissano, and we are here with two artworks, the first of which is The Thinker.
So this sculpture was made by Auguste Rodin, originally as part of the Gates of Hell, first commissioned in 1880. The sculpture was originally meant to be part of the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris, but the museum was never completed. Here we are looking at one of the enlarged versions of The Thinker, about 73 inches in height.
And the first of the enlarged bronze castings of the sculpture was made in 1902.
Yes.
So what makes The Thinker so popular?
Well, the design of the Thinker is not very complex. It's a nude man very much like the classical heroes we see from Michelangelo. He's muscular, tense, and has a twisted pose. His left arm aligns with the direction of the legs, so that it contrasts with the right arm and the direction of his torso.
The Thinker also appears in pop culture, such as the movie Night at the Museum. So why do you think Rodin decided to take this specific sculpture from the Gates of Hell and make it into a standalone?
Well, Rodin held Dante and creative thinkers in general in high regards. The Thinker, originally named the Poet, was Dante the poet sitting on top of the Gates of Hell, contemplating the events of the Divine Comedy. The Thinker represents intellect and valor.
I see. So, the socialist movement was gaining popularity in the late 19th and early 20th century. How did the Thinker have an impact on the people at the time?
The Thinker was actually seen as a hero of the working class, someone rising from the chains of poverty to the heights of consciousness. What the Thinker actually means is speculated by many, is to become a symbol of intelligence and raises the feeling of deep thought and universal appeal.
I think part of what makes this sculpture so interesting is that the Thinker is not thinking with only his mind, but with his furrowed brow throughout his tense body and curled toes. People from all over the world can see this artwork and appreciate it.
There's an interesting story behind one of the bronze cast versions that is found in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, really?
Yes, in 1970, a bomb was placed at the base of the Cleveland Museum's version of the Thinker. A politically radical group was suspected to have committed the vandalism in protest to the continuing military action of the U.S. in Vietnam.
Oh my God!
We can clearly see the damage done.
Yes, we can see how the base has flared out due to the explosion. The museum was left with three choices. 1. They could display a replacement. 2. Repair the sculpture. Or 3. Display the damaged sculpture.
So what did they do?
Well, each choice had its own problem. The casting was one of the few that Rodin had supervised himself, so a replacement would be void of the artist's historical connection. The second choice would be difficult to fit new castings onto the damaged portions of the sculpture.
That's terrible!
So they went with a third option.
Exactly. They did so in order to conserve an authentic artwork, and also as a testament of the upheaval in the U.S. during the Vietnam War.
That's fantastic!
The sculpture was placed outside the museum for all to see. It would be interesting to compare it to the smaller, yet fully intact version within the museum.
Let's move on to our second piece of art now.
Here we're going to look at a very unusual, unique painting by a Spanish surrealist painter who is known for eccentric, striking images.
Here we have The Temptation of St. Anthony by Salvador Dali in the Royal Museum of Fine Arts in Belgium.
For a little background, in 1946, Dali was invited to participate in a painting competition organized by a movie-producing firm called the Lowell-Lewin Company.
The winner of the 11-person competition would have his or her painting worked into an upcoming feature film.
Awesome!
After a few days of work in a New York studio, Dali submitted The Temptation of St. Anthony as his entry.
It was the first and only time Salvador Dali participated in an art contest.
He lost to Max Ernst, a German artist and innovator of the Dada movement.
Fudge!
The Temptation of St. Anthony was his first piece of work with a religious motif.
So what was the religious story behind this?
As told by Athanasius of Alexandria, Anthony renounced his worldly possessions in the 3rd century.
He then travels to the Arabian desert, right?
Yes, and there he lives alone, strengthening his faith.
This painting depicts the temptations of St. Anthony during his pilgrimage to the desert. This became a popular theme in Western culture.
But here we have St. Anthony walking through the desert, being threatened by a rearing horse and 5 spindle-legged elephants.
And these distorted animals become...
symbols.
Yeah, temptations.
Right.
Each figure becomes symbolic.
Here in point 1, St. Anthony is dwarf-like and confined in the bottom left corner of the painting by the approaching monsters.
The negative space around St. Anthony and the foreground shows the distance from the temptation in front of him.
Here his clothes are shorn and his hand is raised toward the oncoming parade of temptation.
Yes, and look at his posture.
He kneels almost in
Submission.
Right.
Is his nude kneeling body in submission to the temptation or to his unseen Savior?
The cross,
A common symbol of Christianity.
is in his extended hand and seems to indicate the strength and will of his faith.
Now at point 2, we have this monstrous white horse.
It symbolizes strength, yet the small body of St. Anthony frightens it.
The position of the horse may indicate it may also symbolize something else.
The horse is up on its hind legs, exposing its undercarriage.
Yes, and its mane looks like flames of a fire, representing the fiery passion of sex.
Romance.
Also, the muscular body of the horse can also represent a female's voluptuousness.
The horse's gaze at the woman's breasts reinforces that.
Point 3 is pointing to the elephant's legs.
They are quite unusual
Yeah, they're long, spindly.
and look really fragile.
The elephant's legs symbolizes man's desire to excel.
However, as the feet of the gargantuan beasts are planted on the ground, so are the dreams of man planted in reality.
You know, while a common symbol in Dali's work, the elephants were not completely original.
Right, they were highly influenced by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, who was a famous Italian artist, who is often commissioned by the papacy.
Dali's elephants resemble Bernini's The Polsino della Minerva.
The famous elephant sculpture is one of the 11 Egyptian monuments in Rome,
At point 4, the first elephant is carrying a golden cup.
which is a symbol of fertility and lust.
Right, and on which the nude woman stands on.
The angle of the nude implies her footing is unstable, showing the precarious nature of between fertility and lust among women.
Here at point 5, the elephant is carrying an obelisk, which is a phallic symbol.
Like a penis, especially when erect.
Yes, phallic is an erect penis, or a penis-shaped object, or a mimetic of an erect penis.
Especially any object that symbolically resembles a penis.
That's gross!
Right.
Anyways, the obelisk is a reference to Bernini's The Polsino della Minerva.
The obelisk in the background at point 7 most closely resembles Bernini's original work. Here at point 6 and 8, there are two elephants carrying a Palladio-style palace.
Andrea Palladio was a Venetian architect who, like Bernini, was commissioned for religious art.
Salvador Dali associates the work of these two religious artists,
Bernini and Palladio,
to the elephants of temptation. Here the viewer may ask himself or herself, are the direct references to these influential artists a comment on the artist, religious architecture, or religion itself?
Let's take a look at point 9. What is the meaning of the direct reference to Bernini covered in the background by clouds?
First of all, the clouds are dark and ominous.
And hidden among the clouds is the royal seat of San Lorenzo de El Escorial, most commonly called El Escorial.
Historically, it was the residence of the King of Spain until 1861. It was also at the same time a predominant monastery for the Catholic Church. For many living in Spain, El Escorial represented Spain's former prosperity and honor due to its historical past.
Since El Escorial comprised both government and religion, it symbolized temporal and spiritual order.
That's right.
The building can only barely be made out among the foreboding clouds.
Does a lack of visibility of El Escorial mean that it is being consumed by temptation or resisting it? The painting is so ambiguous as to whether or not it is positive towards Christianity.
But overall, it has a dark tone.
St. Anthony's nude body adds to the sexual overtones of the painting, implying that he may have succumbed to temptation.
However, the dramatic reaction of the horse to the raised cross implies St. Anthony is able to ward off temptation with his faith.
One may ask, how are we to respond to this?